Yes, good morning, one and all. So,
Good.
yes, so today's lecture, we shall be talking about pollen morphology. There are two topics which I am sharing for this particular class. One is anatomy, second is palynology. So, what is palynology? In simple words, palynology is the study of external morphological features of a mature pollen grain or spores. Even though it is palynology, the word palynology stands for palynos, which means a small particle, and logos, which means study. So it is the study of pollen grains. But at the same time, when you study the different type of spores, that is also being considered as palynology. This particular term palynology was first time was used by scientist Hyde and Williams in 1944. As far as TYBS is concerned, you are aware of the syllabus in which comes under paper 2 unit 4. We have pollen morphology, then pollen viability and storage, then germination and growth of pollen tube, and various applications of palynology. So out of these, today we are going to discuss about basic palynology, and that is with the help of pollen morphology. When I use the term spore, it is loosely applicable to the various types of reproductive bodies in the cryptogams, which are formed either for sexual or asexual reproduction methods. There are a number of type of spores you must have heard about, like akinets, endospores, ascospores, basidiospores, conidiospores, etc. Similarly, you are aware of microspore and megaspore. But megaspore is something which is very difficult to observe because of its duration. Because as soon as megaspore is formed, immediately it develops into female gametophyte. But on the other hand, microspore, that is a pollen grain, these are the male reproductive bodies of the flowering plants, and they are quite available for anyone to study. And in palynology, we are basically targeting the same pollen grains for the study. In the last lecture also, I mentioned how the pollen grains are formed. Pollen grains are microspores and they are formed by meiosis, which is referred to as microsporogenesis, which takes place in the microspore mother cells. One microspore mother cell gives rise to 4 microspores, which are haploid, and they are usually present in the form of a tetrad. And then later on, these pollen grains would separate from each other. So when I'm interested in studying the pollen grains, how do I study? I can study the morphology of spores or pollen grains with reference to these different aspects, which are polarity, symmetry, size and shape, apertures, and exine stratification. These are 5 different aspects we need to check in terms of pollen morphology. So let us check one by one. I would be using these diagrams as a reference to my discussion. In this discussion, the first one is polarity. So here I have the first diagram, which is showing a pollen tetrad. This is a pollen tetrad. When pollen grains are formed, I said they are in the group of 4 pollen grains, and these 4 pollen grains together forms the pollen tetrad or microspore tetrad. When I want to study the polarity of any pollen grain, individual spore or pollen grain, I have to always express it with reference to its arrangement in the tetrad. I cannot study the polarity of an individual pollen grain without its position in the tetrad. You can see here, these are 3 pollen grains visible from this particular view. But there is a 4th pollen grain as well, which is on the other side. You can imagine the 3-dimensional structure. You can see here the pollen grains are together. And when they are together, there is one end of the pollen grain directing towards the center. And it is but obvious there is another end which is exactly opposite to that. So the end of pollen grain which is directed towards the center of the tetrad is called as proximal pole. Whereas the other one which is towards the outer side, exactly opposite, is referred to as distal. Proximal, in common language, proximal means close and distal means away. So the pole which is close to the center and it is close to other pollen grains also, that is referred to as proximal pole, and the one which is away is called as a distal pole. That is how you can remember it. And now if I draw a hypothetical line which is connecting these 2 poles, hypothetical line, there is no such a line present on the pollen grain. This is the line I am talking about, which is connecting the 2 poles, is referred to as polar axis. Polar axis. Whereas there is another line which is running perpendicular to the polar axis, that is this one. Again, it's a hypothetical line, is referred to as equatorial axis. So I've got 2 axes. One is polar axis, which is connecting proximal and distal pole. And then there is the equatorial axis, which is perpendicular to the polar axis. The equatorial axis significantly demarcates equal or unequal polar faces, and thus pollen grains or spores are either isopolar, iso means similar, or heteropolar respectively. Heteropolar is dissimilar. So it is basically this equatorial axis which will decide whether the pollen grain is isopolar or heteropolar. The lateral sides are commonly referred to as zonal side of the pollen grain. I am referring to these particular sites. These are called as the zonal sites. However, in case of some spores or poles or polar region cannot be distinguished in individual spore after separation of the tetrad. Such spores are known as polar spores. There are also some spores referred to as cytopolar spores, which have similar appearance like polar spores, but on close examination, they reveal a more or less distinct polarity. For example, spores of Equisetum, they are referred to as cytopolar spores. So when I'm talking about polarity, I have to remember proximal pole, which is close to the center, distal pole which is exactly opposite to that and away from it. Then there is a polar axis which is joining proximal and distal pole. Then there is an equatorial axis which is perpendicular to the polar axis, and the other two sides which are referred to as zonal sides. And then there are two types of spores, polar spores and cytopolar spores. So even if I remember these keywords, I'm
Sir,
able.
can you explain the polar spore and cytopolar spore
Sure.
once again?
Yes. See, in some cases, some spores, the polar regions cannot be distinguished in individual spores, individual. After separation of a tetrad, just imagine if this is a tetrad, the upper one is tetrad, fine. And in this particular tetrad, you are able to make out proximal pole and distal pole. Now just imagine these pollen grains separate out. Then it is difficult. Then it is difficult to distinguish between the two opposite poles.
Yes.
Such a spores would be called as polar spores. So usually such a spores are spherical spores. So it is very difficult that you can distinguish their poles, opposite poles. Okay? But then there are spores called as cytopolar, which have similar appearance like polar spores. But if you have a very close examination, they will reveal some or more or less distinct polarity. I mean, they will show there is a difference. For example, the spore of equisetum. So such a spores would be called as cytopolar. So I would say even 99% of the spores or pollen grains are polar. And the remaining few like equisetum, where you can distinguish, they would be called as cytopolar. Okay? Have you
Yes,
understood?
sir. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Then we come to the next point. What is the next point in our discussion? The next point is symmetry. What is a symmetry? Symmetry is a general term. We use a symmetry for any object. We call the object as either symmetrical or asymmetrical. Even when we talk about the animal, body of the animal, we have symmetrical, asymmetrical, even for flower also, symmetrical flower, asymmetrical flower. So same way for pollen grain also we have a symmetry. So in symmetry, we have an axis and or axis or plane, and then we find out whether the spore or pollen grain is divided into two equal halves or not. If the spore or pollen grain is divided into two equal halves along any vertical plane passing through the radius, is referred to as radiosymmetrical pollen grain or symmetrical pollen grain. Is a symmetrical pollen grain. Okay? And the one which do not show the two equal halves, it is referred to as asymmetrical pollen grain. So on the basis of symmetry, pollen grains are either symmetrical or asymmetrical. Then symmetrical pollen grains are either radiosymmetrical or bilateral symmetrical. You are aware of radial symmetry. Starfish. Starfish is radiosymmetry. In any plane, not only vertical, horizontal plane, or any plane which is passing through the radius, you will get two equal halves. Say for example, first figure, circular pollen grain. So in circular pollen grain, there has to be radial symmetry. The next one, triangular. In triangular also you will get radial symmetry. But what about tetraangular? What about pentangular? What you'll get? Will you get radiosymmetry?
No, sir.
In two planes, at least you will get tetraangular. The vertical and the horizontal. Pentangular, again, only one plane. So circular and triangular would be called as radiosymmetrical. And below you have bilateral symmetrical. Bilateral symmetrical क्या होगा? Two equal halves, but only
Two
in,
halves.
only in one plane. So radiosymmetrical spores can be divided into two equal halves along any vertical plane passing through the radius, whereas bilateral spores, on the other hand, have only two such planes, either vertical or horizontal. And then there are asymmetrical spores. The asymmetrical spores are comparatively rare in the occurrence. Rare. Because pollen grain or spore is something which has to be transported. And anything to be transported should have proper symmetry. So they have either non-fixiform without a fixed shape or fixiform with a definite shape. But as I said, they are of very rare occurrence. So asymmetrical spores does exist, but they are very rare. Either they are non-fixiform, that means without fixed shape, or they are of fixiform, that is of definite shape. Okay, so that is about symmetry of a pollen grain. So after polarity and symmetry, next one we have is size and shape. Now pollen grains are visible to the naked eye, but if you want to see the detailed structure like exine, intine, then apertures and everything, then you have to see it under microscope. So what about the size and shape? As far as the size of the spores or pollen grain is concerned, it is ranging from 10 to 200 micron. 10 to 200 micron. Micron is 10 raised to minus 6 meter or 10 raised to minus 3 millimeter. In simple words, if I divide 1 millimeter into 1000 equal parts, 1 millimeter into 1000 equal parts, then that is 1 micron. So you just imagine on your centimeter scale, there is 1 millimeter, not centimeter, 1 millimeter, and divide it into 1000 equal divisions. It is not possible for us to do it. You can
Yes,
just
sir.
imagine. You can just imagine how small they are. But 10 micron to 200 micron. So some pollen grains we are able to see as a dust particles. Okay, so you can imagine that of a dust particle which is visible to you. So such kind of pollen grains does exist. So you just imagine 10 micron to 200 micron is the average size of the pollen grains. Okay, as far as the shape is concerned, its measurement involves consideration of polar diameter and equatorial diameter. Polar axis आपको पता है, equatorial axis आपको पता है. How can I find out the diameter of polar or equatorial diameter? Simply, yesterday only we discussed micrometer. So with the help of micrometer, I can find out the, suppose it is a spherical pollen grain. So it is but obvious polar diameter and equatorial diameter are going to be same. And the ratio of polar and equatorial diameter multiplied by 100 gives the indication of the shape. So the shape of the pollen grain is decided by simply finding out the ratio of polar and equatorial diameter multiplied by 100. As far as shape of the radiosymmetric or fixiform asymmetric spore is concerned, the shape of the pollen grain varies in different views. Some pollen grains, when viewed from a different principal axis, shows a different shape. We are going to have one practical related to this. So at that time, you'll be able to see in different views, pollen grains looks different. One of the example is Ocimum, that is Tulsi. Tulsi ka pollen grain is totally different in two different views. For example, outline of the polar view of different pollen grains. In determining the shape of bilateral symmetric pollen grains, two equatorial axes are taken into consideration. Outline of the polar view of different bilateral symmetric pollen grains have to be considered, and I'll just check out if it is available. Yeah, these are some of the images, diagrams from your practicals only. We are going to do this practical, and here you can see there are at least 5 different types of pollen grains for the study. And here you can see the pollen grains of Pancratium, Hibiscus, Canna, Datura, and Ocimum, Tulsi. Now here you can see the Ocimum has a cartwheel-like structure. It's a spherical structure. So from the outline of these pollen grains in the polar view of the bilateral symmetric pollen grains, one can come to know about the various shapes of the pollen grain. So this particular shape, what you will call this as biconvex shape. This is a spherical shape. This is also spherical shape. This is not exactly spherical. It is somewhere between triangular to spherical. This is again spherical. So that is how you have to conclude by checking the polar axis as well as equatorial axis. Take a ratio multiplied by 100. Okay. So now we have considered first three aspects of pollen morphology: polarity, symmetry, size and shape. Next is apertures. Now this is very important. Apertures. Now what are apertures? In simple words, apertures are nothing but openings or thin areas which are found on the spore, from where the germ pore comes out, or rather the germ tube comes out and the pollen tube is formed. They are referred to as the apertures. So apertures are the openings or thin areas found on the spore wall through which the inner contents can be clearly seen. And there are two important functions of these apertures. Number one, they control the change in the volume of spores or pollen grains with reference to change in the humidity content of the atmosphere. So as per the outer environmental condition in the atmosphere, they can change the volume of the spores. That is number one. And number two, that is very, very important. Just now I mentioned it, that through one of the aperture, the germ tube or pollen tube comes out during germination process. So when the pollen grain falls on the stigma after successful pollination, due to all the requirements, you remember the requirements: hydration, presence of sucrose, boron, and calcium. When all these requirements are met, the pollen germinate. So at that germination time, it is aperture only through which the germ tube or pollen tube comes out. The pollen tube is formed, and that pollen tube, there is a cytoplasm, there is a tube nucleus, and there are two male gametes which are moving towards a female gametophyte. That is called siphonogamy. We have learned this.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So the main function of this pollen tube is to carry the male gametes up to the female gamete, and that tube is coming from the aperture. So aperture is must. Aperture is must. So those spores or pollen grains who have the apertures, they are called as aperturate. I'll just write it down here. The pollen grains can be divided into two categories on the basis of whether apertures are present or absent. Aperturate, if present. And there are some pollen grains, especially in hydrophytes. Especially in hydrophytes, there are some pollen grains which do not show the presence of apertures, and they are referred to as inaperturate. Inaperturate if absent. Some hydrophytes. So it is probably one of the adaptation these hydrophytes are showing, so that the pollen grains do not have aperture. I'll just have to mention here, especially in hydrophytes, submerged hydrophytes, the pollination is taking place with the help of water. And there are two types. One is called as epihydrophily. Epi is above water surface. And second is called as hypohydrophily, that is below water surface. And in this hypohydrophily, there is one example, Zostera. You can check out later on that this Zostera pollen grains, exine is absent, and the pollen grain is spiral with only intine. Okay. Now you just remember, what is the aperture? Aperture is that area where exine is absent. Now in Zostera, if there is no exine, it is but obviously there is no germ pore. Sorry, there is no aperture. So such pollen grain is referred to as inaperturate pollen grain. So I'm just mentioning here. You can later on check. It was there in 12th standard also. So if you have your books available, or the best thing is Google search it. Zostera is an example of the hydrophyte where apertures are absent. In fact, you can remember this also, exine is absent. Exine is absent. Okay? So this is about apertures. But this is only about presence or absent. What about if present? What about the number? The number is also varying. The number of aperture is variable. It may be 1, it may be 3 or more. I said the number of the apertures is variable. If it is 0, I have already mentioned inaperturate. If it is 1, it is monoaperturate, but 1 only single aperture is present, especially in bryophytes. It is also present in pteridophytes, and it is also found in gymnosperms as well as in monocots, angiospermic monocots. So who is left now? Only one group is left. What is that group?
Dicot.
Yes, 3 or more. 3 or more. Minimum 3 apertures are present. There are some pollen grains who have more. So dicots from the angiosperm, the most advanced group, they have 3 or more apertures. So repeat, what are apertures? Apertures are the openings or thin areas which are found on the spore wall through which the inner contents can be clearly seen. And there are two important functions. Number one, they control the change in the volume of the spore or pollen grain with reference to the outer humidity content. And second, through any of these apertures, the pollen tube will come out. On the basis of presence or absence of aperture, we have got two types. If present, the pollen grain is called as aperturate. If absent, inaperturate. Inaperturate, especially in case of the submerged hydrophytes like Zostera, where exine is completely absent. And as far as the number of apertures is concerned, we have got 1 to many. 0 number, that is inaperturate. Bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperm, and the angiospermic monocots, they have only 1, so they are monoaperturate. But this term is not usually utilized, only number is mentioned, and 3 or more in case of dicots. Okay, so out of 5, we have already completed 4 parameters for pollen morphology, and now we come to the last parameter, that is exine stratification. What is exine? Have you heard of exine?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Outer layer
Yes.
of
Yes.
pollen grain.
Yes. It is a outer layer of
Pollen grain.
pollen grain, or should I say outer layer of sporoderm or spore wall?
Yes, sir.
Correct. So when I consider a single pollen grain, in a single pollen grain, there is okay. In a single pollen grain, there is a spore wall and this spore wall is differentiated into two regions where there is an outer comparatively thick exine and then there is a comparatively thin intine. And now there is an area from where the intine comes out like this. So this is the area is referred to as the germ pore. So germ pore is coming out and that area is referred to as the aperture, which we discussed just now. And then this is a wall which is having outer comparatively thick and inner comparatively thin, and together it is referred to as the spore wall or sporoderm. So this is outer exine, this is inner intine, this is germ pore, and this germ pore is coming out from the aperture. Okay. The outer wall of pollen or spores, it is referred to as spore wall or sporoderm. And this sporoderm usually is made up of pectinous substance called as polledine, Pollenin, polledine. The sporoderm usually is made up of pectin, which is a structural polysaccharide in the plant cell wall. Uh, the the jelly which we eat is basically a pectin. It is extracted from the fruit walls and which is rich in 1,4 linked galacturonic acid residues with other sugars. I'm talking about pectin. But at the same time, you have to remember that the exine is made up of chemically very complex chemical component which is referred to as sporopolledine. Sporopolledine. And this sporopolledine is a complex non-biodegradable substance. And that is the reason why even after the release of the pollen grains, and many of the pollen grains go wastage, so some of them would go to the soil as well or into the water, and they may undergo fossilization. So even after fossilization, the pollen wall remains as it is. Fossilization is a process which takes place after millions of years under tremendous pressure and temperature. So even in that fossilized form, the wall of the pollen grain remain as it is, and that is due to this exine. Then what about pectin? Pectin is biodegradable, and that is present in the intine. So intine is inner thin made up of cellulose and pectin, and obviously it is biodegradable. It is a biodegradable substance. So intine, there is no problem as such. Intine will definitely break down, but the exine will remain as it is. Okay. So these are the two coverings or walls together called as sporoderm. The outer layer is called as exine, whereas the inner one is called as intine. Now, again, this exine is formed of two layers. The outer one is called as sexine, and the inner one is called as nexine. So I'll just make a simple flow chart in order to make you understand. Sporoderm or spore wall is divided into outer exine and inner intine. Exine is further divided into outer sexine and inner nexine. Now, if you see the spelling, both the spellings are same except the first letter. Sexine begins with S, and nexine begins with N. The remaining spelling is same, exine, exine. So they are the parts of exine. But what is S stands for? Here, S stands for sculptured. And N, here N stands for non-sculpture. Non-sculpture. And that is the reason why you get S sculptured. Exine is called as sexine. Sculptured in the sense it shows modification. And non-sculptured, which remain as it is, that is called as nexine. Nexine. Okay, so N stands for non-sculpture. So outer sexine and inner nexine. The sexine also may have few layers. What are the few layers? The few layers are either ectosexine or endosexine. Whereas nexine can be divided into 3 layers: nexine 1, nexine 2, and nexine 3. Okay, so now we have got our flowchart ready. Exine and intine. These are the 2 layers or 2 walls of the pollen grain. Outer exine is made up of sporopollenin, which is a complex non-biodegradable substance, whereas intine is inner biodegradable, made up of cellulose and pectin. It is the same intine which comes out in the form of a pollen tube. So obviously the chemical nature of pollen tube is cellulose and pectin. Exine is further differentiated into sexine and nexine, where sexine is sculptured, nexine is non-sculptured. The sexine is further divided into ectosexine and endosexine, whereas nexine is further differentiated into 3 layers, namely nexine 1, nexine 2, and nexine 3. Okay, and then based on that, we are going to check what kind of patterns of especially sexine, because we have mentioned it as sculptured, so it is going to show some modification, whereas rest of the layers, they are more or less similar. Of course there would be differences, but they are not much. So what are the sexine pattern or ornamentations seen in the pollen grain?